Good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, October the 1st, 2020. It is currently 1:59 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church, located here in Ovalo, Texas. And I'm doing much better than I was yesterday. Now, yesterday, I came out here to do hours of live broadcasting. That didn't really work, okay? I got one thing accomplished, and I had to leave. And if you go back and listen to what I did yesterday, the live broadcast that I did, it's obviously uploaded. It wasn't obviously very good. Yesterday, for those who do not know, obviously, some of you, I know you've heard this a million times, but we have new listeners, so they have no clue. I have a seizure disorder related to something that happened to me while I was in the military, and I got medically discharged, now 100% disabled. I'm not going to go through the long story, but as a result of what happened, I have a seizure disorder, and what comes with that seizure disorder is a lot of times a lot of neurological issues. And yesterday, to be honest, I don't even know how I made it here to the church. I don't even really know how I pulled off 1 hour of a live broadcast, but I did. I definitely don't know how I made it back home, but I did. But I was kind of that pre-seizure, not knowing where I was, not really knowing what was going on, not even know what I was thinking. It's hard to explain. It's like being underwater, and it's not It's not a wonderful experience, and I hate it. It really stops me from being able to accomplish the things I need to accomplish. And yesterday was a good example. Yesterday evening, I said, okay, maybe I can do some recording from home, right? And so I got ready to do some live broadcasts from home last night. That didn't happen. And at some point, don't know when, don't know where, I found myself on the floor, and obviously I had a seizure at some point. I don't really know when or where or what time, but it's all said and done. I feel much better today. Sometimes after that, I kind of come back out of it. Sometimes it takes a long time. So put it this way. I feel better. Let me stress this. I feel better. Whether I'm actually better will only time will tell. Once I start talking, my thoughts may get all, discombobulated, and who knows what I'll be saying. So, I take no responsibility for anything that I'm about to say. I know I obviously have to take responsibility because, I'm the one doing it, but yes. So, so I hope today that I can accomplish something of great benefit, hopefully. I don't know how long I'm going to do live broadcasting, but we will see. What's on my mind today? There are a lot of things on my mind today, but for some weird reason, the attention is kind of turned into looking into the future. All right, now I'm not claiming to be a prophet, not claiming that I can predict the future. I'm not claiming that, but my thoughts are looking forward. I mean, today is October the 1st. Before we know it, we're going to be saying goodbye to 2020. I know that there's we all probably want to jump up and down and go, yes, say goodbye to 2020. But are we sure 2021 is going to be any better? Are we sure? What should we be looking at? What should we be preparing ourselves for going into 2021? And that's kind of what I'm thinking about today. And what kind of really sparked this way of thinking. Once again, I always have an agenda. Hey, this is what I'm going to get to the church and talk about. And then things always happen to change that agenda. And that's what happened today. On my way here, I heard the last part of like about a 1-minute commentary that they were doing on a radio station I was listening to. And so I got here and I started looking for it. I didn't think I was ever going to find it. Finally, I found it. Then I couldn't download it. Finally, I found a way to download it. So I have it here. It's actually a 2-minute commentary. And it got me thinking just about a lot of issues. And so I'm not going to go through all the possible issues that I think we need to be paying attention to. You're going to be hearing me do some individual broadcasts for each one. But I think there's one issue for this episode that I want you to focus on. As you look into 2021, what do you think? And I'm asking you to start thinking about this as well. Now, again, I'm not asking us to we can't make any definitive predictions. We cannot be dogmatic, but we can speculate, right? We can try to just say, this is what I think is going to happen, and then prepare ourselves for it. It's at least some wisdom. It's prudent to at least look into the future a little bit and go, this is where I think we could go. Now, ultimately, we have no control over it. So ultimately, we have to focus on today, but at least having enough wisdom to possibly plan. All right. I guess that's a good way of putting it. And so here's the issue. Looking into 2021, what do you think the state of free speech will be in 2021? As we move into 2021, what do you think is going to be the future, the state of free speech? Do you think we're going to see an erosion of free speech? We're going to see that constitutional right be slowly but surely taken away from more and more individuals, and it be restricted in more and more ways. Now, there's a lot of issues when you start talking about free speech, right? You talk about someone's freedom to speak, and then you also have the freedom of someone who owns a website to allow certain speech on their website or to ban certain speech on their website, right? You've got to balance that out. I may have the freedom to speak, right? I can come into this, I can go stand outside next to this building and say whatever I want, but it doesn't mean anyone has to give me the ability to hook up a microphone, record it, and upload it to their platform. Now, is that an abuse of free speech? This gets into a lot of things that happens on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, where they silence something, and we're like, well, wait a minute, that's an attack on free speech. Is it an attack on free speech, or is it them exercising their rights? It's their platform. They built it. They invested the money. Then do they not have the right to determine what content can and cannot be on their platform? Like, you've got to try to balance, like, how do we balance that out? Sometimes we're like, it's an attack on free speech. And then sometimes it may be an attack on certain kinds of speech, but don't they have the right? Now, if the internet itself, right? In other words, you can't build a website and you can't, I think this is the thing. We see the internet as the area where we have that we can express that free speech. But, obviously as more and more, let's just take it I think this is a good way to look at it. For example, you can build an app, but if on that app you express free speech, right, that you believe needs to be stated, and the app stores decide that they don't want your app promoting that speech on there, is that a violation of your free speech, or do they not have the right to decide what apps they will and will not host? Like this, there's lots of questions that show up here. Like a lot of, sometimes a Christian will get, maybe they're on YouTube and they say something and their video gets taken down. They're like, this is an attack on free speech. This is an attack on conservatives, but it's their platform, right? So don't they have the right to decide what's there or not there? Now, can you go build your own platform? Now, if you can go build your own platform, and then for some reason, all internet sites say you can't have your platform on the internet. There's still ways. It's really this very tricky world in which we live, right? Because to communicate with people today, you obviously need the internet. But guess what? Not only do you need the internet, if you really want to reach the masses, then you need to get your podcast on all the podcasting hosting sites, Spotify, Apple, Google. Well, what if they decide that they don't like your speech? Well, you can still speak, but guess what? You're not going to be able to reach anyone because you're not going to be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. You're not going to be anywhere. So what should the rules be? How should you protect free speech, but at the same time protect the rights of different hosting sites, different platforms to decide the content they want to host? I mean, we see this in Christianity. Go to Sermon Audio. Sign up for an account for Sermon Audio. You have to agree to certain things. And if you don't agree with certain things, they're not going to host your content. And they can remove your content at any time. If they decide that your content is not acceptable or what they want on their platform, they can get rid of you. I've watched that happen multiple times when we used to be on Sermon Audio, of different people who were removed from Sermon Audio for different reasons. Well, is that an attack on free speech? don't they have the right to decide who and who isn't? So it's hard to figure this out. So sometimes I think that as Christians, we can start screaming, the sky is falling, free speech is going to be gone tomorrow. And in other situations, like, whoa, slow down. That's just those companies exercising their rights. Do we want to force YouTube to say, we don't care if you agree with the content, you will host all content? Well, then how far does that go, right? So, there's lots of issues here, But as I think what we are seeing, and I think that this is a concern, is that we're moving into a frame of mind throughout society that seems to say that, hey, if your speech is offensive, if I dislike your speech, if I disagree with your speech, then we want you silenced. We want you banned. We want you removed. We want your content blocked. We don't, and individuals do this all over social media. I mean, social media has really given a rise to a different way of thinking. This is, I don't like what you post, blocked. I don't like what you post, blocked. I don't like what you say, unfriended. And we just remove any speech that we don't like. So then we create these bubbles where we only see the speech that we agree with, and we only communicate with the people who agree with us. And then we say we're on social media preaching to the masses, and all we're really doing is preaching to the choir, because anyone who disagrees with us, or makes us uncomfortable, we block and we silence. Well, then I don't even know what we're doing. We're just sitting in a little circle. Look, you agree with me. I agree with you. We can be friends. Who's that? Stranger alert, danger, stranger, danger, whatever the case may be. They just came in, and guess what? They have views and ideas that offend me. Let's block them. And then not only do you block them, then you post on your feed that everyone else should block the person because they're dangerous. I've seen Christians do this on social media. Don't follow that person. Block that person. They're dangerous. They're a heretic. They're an apostate. They don't agree with our view in Christianity. So you don't listen to anyone that differs with you. And I think this is kind of a new way of thinking that's kind of, I think social media has led to it, which leads to, listen to what I'm about to say. In a way, it's an attack upon free speech, and it attacks free speech in this way. It tries to silence any speech that we don't agree with. Well, if we never hear speech that we disagree with, how can we ever be challenged? How can we ever have our views tested? We have to hear things that disagree with us. We have to. That's the only way. Look, hearing different perspectives, we have to be willing to do that. We have to allow that. But we live in a day and age, it's like, nope. It's almost like, we view our life like a playlist. Like, you go onto a music streaming service and you pick the songs you want and you put in a playlist and you play only the songs you want to hear. You never have to worry if someone on radio playing a song that you don't like. You don't have to ever worry about hearing a song you don't like. You don't have to ever worry about hearing a genre you don't prefer. And we want our life this way. I want my daily life to be a playlist, and I only hear from people who agree with me. I don't want to ever hear a counter perspective. I don't ever want to hear anyone disagree with me. I don't want to ever have my views challenged. You can just ask a simple question. Someone posts something on social media. You ask them a simple question. They will pull out the knives and cut you into pieces, then block you, ban you, silence you. And you're like, what happened? Because no dissent is allowed. Now, we tend to say this is only the people on the left doing this. People on the right, people on the left, Christians have been playing this game for a very long time. If we don't like a movie that comes out, we want the movie banned. We want them to remove the movie. We boycott this, sign a petition for this. Boycott this, anything that disagrees with us. Christians have been playing that game for a long time. Christians get mad when the game is then, when they reverse the game and then they have to endure it, right? It's fine. Christians had no problem banning and silencing other people. But when then other people say, no, ban and silence the Christians, then we're like, we're being persecuted. They're out to get us. The world hates us. Well, we were playing the same game. See, that's why my perspective is freedom for all. I want the atheist to have freedom to say the most offensive, blasphemous things on the face of the earth. I want them to be able to condemn Christianity, mock Christianity, parody Christianity. I want them to say whatever, and I want the ability to respond and say atheism is a bankrupt, perspective, and that without God, there's eternal consequences. I want to be able to say and deal with and talk about it as well. I want freedom. The freedom I deny others is freedom I ultimately deny myself. So there are a lot of issues right now pertaining to free speech. And we saw all of this erupt over Alex Jones. Alex Jones obviously was very popular. He made some comments about Sandy Hook. He made lots of other comments. And next thing you know, the big tech companies decided, that's it, we're done with Alex Jones. Now, you could go through everything that he did. There were lots of violations, we could talk about all day the way it went, but it just looked like it was a coordinated decision amongst all the big tech companies to say, that's it, Alex, you're gone. Boom. Banned from this, banned from this, banned from YouTube, banned from Facebook, banned from Instagram. And they started taking down his stuff, banning his apps. He couldn't have his apps in the App Store. And I stated, and I was emphatic then, and I'm still emphatic now, that everyone should have came to Alex Jones' defense. Everyone should have. Liberal, conservative, Christian, atheist. And it's not we come to his defense because we say we agree with your content, Alex Jones. No, but we don't want your rights to be taken because ultimately that could be used against our rights. But no, a lot of people were like, about time Alex Jones was silenced. And it's like that's a slippery slope. Now, again, does YouTube, do these big tech companies do they have a right? And this becomes down, should they be considered a platform or they should be considered a publisher? Yeah, can they be held responsible for the content on their site? Well, if they're not a publisher, then they say we're not held responsible for the content on our sites. Where if you're not held responsible for the content on your site, then just open your site for all content other than content that calls for harm or hurts, people, like calling for physical harm or calling for violence or, doing something illegal. But other than that, I think they should try to stay out of the monitoring and censoring and silencing business but at the same time, it's their platform. See, if I say that YouTube shouldn't be able to do that, well, then Sermon Audio does it. All kinds of Christian sites. You can't bring your content on our site unless you agree to this statement of faith. Well, okay, I don't agree with your statement of faith. You can't be on our platform. Right? So lots of people do this. So you've got the Edify Christian podcast. They don't let everything on their podcast. They still won't respond to me. We can't even get on their podcast app, and they won't even tell me why. There you have it. It's a very difficult situation. So what is the future going to look like? What are we going to? What are we moving towards? On one hand, I want to say, we're in trouble, but on the other hand, I see a lot of sometimes we exaggerate the danger that free speech is in. And then sometimes I do believe that 2021 is going to be another year where we're still trying to struggle to figure this out, right? Facebook tries to, what should we censor? What should we ban? Now they're trying, you post something and then they can put a fact check on it or post something that your post contains, possibly incorrect information about COVID or whatever the case may be. And some people don't like that. But again, it's their platform. That's the thing. It's hard to balance. If you don't like what they do, you don't have to use Twitter. You don't have to use Facebook. You can whine about it, but you're not even paying to be on there. So, you can go create your own. But that does at least keep you, that does limit then your ability to reach people. But the freedom of speech does not, listen, the guarantee, and I want to make this the right to the freedom of speech is not a right or guarantee that people are going to give you the platform to state that speech. You may have the freedom to speak, but that does not guarantee that you have a freedom to pick which platform you want to speak on and that they have a responsibility to host it and allow you. And this is going to be very, very difficult. And this is something the church has to start thinking about, right? We're going to have to start thinking about this, because as we move further and further away from Christianity, the world's going to become more and more hostile to our, think about the messages of Christianity that are very offensive. Homosexuality, a sin. Okay? Men, that the way creation works is that God created a man and a woman, and that, you're born either a biological male or a biological female. Your chromosomes determine this. And, saying it, just even trying to explain that is considered offensive and can get you banned from lots of sites. Abortion is murder. That can get you in all kinds of trouble. As the world moves further and further away from Christianity, the Christian message is going to be considered more radical and more offensive. So more and more platforms are going to possibly could say, no, you can't post that sermon. No, you can't post your sermons on this site. Well, then that's going, we may say we're being persecuted, but then the key is, can we still get our message out? Like, right now I've never had a problem. My messages are everywhere. I've never had a problem with Spotify, Apple, Google, nowhere. I've not had a problem yet, but the day could come that it does. That's what we have to be prepared for. And we still may have the freedom to speak. We just may not be given. We've been given such a great opportunity to try to reach people around the world, and we may be losing some of those opportunities. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I bring all of this up. I raise all of these questions because that was the subject I heard about on my way here just a little while ago. And I know I just bombarded you with a lot of ideas there. I'm just throwing out a lot of ideas because I think this is the reality. No matter what the issue is, there's always multiple layers to it. It's never always simple like black and white. Yes, freedom of speech. Yes, I believe in it. However, does YouTube have to guarantee you the right that you can post your freedom of speech on their platform? That's a different question. And you can say, well, they're attacking conservatives. Well, it's their site. They don't want a conservative site. Do they have to have one? Or are you telling them that they have to? Well, then go create a conservative site and then let liberals on there. Go create a conservative site and then let liberals have their podcast on there. And you're going to be like, well, we don't like that. Okay, well, see, like, everyone wants their viewpoint expressed everywhere, but we're not always as willing to let the counterpoint to be expressed everywhere as well. So there's got to be some thinking about this. But here is the commentary I heard. It's only 2 minutes. It's going to go by fast, but listen carefully.
This is Dr. Richard Land, president of Southern Evangelical Seminary. Welcome to Bringing Every Thought Captive. A comprehensive new survey of American colleges and universities reveals some very disturbing and shocking news. The survey asked nearly 20,000 students at 55 colleges and universities how tolerant and open to controversial ideas their campuses were. Well, the top score would be 100. That'd be perfect. The school with the highest score was the University of Chicago with just 64.2 points out of 100. The lowest was DePaul University with a 44% score. Now, what the survey did was it asked about two key aspects of free speech: the toleration level for allowing controversial speakers on campus, and students' responses when asked how free they felt to hold open conversations about controversial issues, such as abortion, transgender rights, and racial justice. When they tabulated the scores, they found that often the college faculty and administrators were more tolerant of free speech than the students themselves were. This certainly leads us to the conclusion that there may be more blowback from peers, fellow students, than from administrators when it comes to free speech. 60% of the students surveyed said there was at least one time when they did not share a perspective for fear of how others would respond. It's interesting that self-identifying conservatives felt more likely to self-censor, 72%, but liberals, 55% of them felt self-censored. And 42% of students said it was acceptable for their schools to punish speakers who make, quote, offensive statements. 17% said that it would be acceptable to use violence to shut down such speech. Now, this leads us to believe that the future of free speech is in bad shape. The younger you are, the more likely you are to not be tolerant of hearing or being exposed to ideas that you believe are offensive. That does not bode well for the future of the United States. Free speech is absolutely essential to the maintenance of democracy and of religious freedom. This is Richard Land.
Wow. Yeah, I heard that and I was like, so what, 17% agreed that it's okay to use violence to stop speech you find offensive? What are you talking about? And these are young people. Now here's my theory. I'm going to go with this theory. My theory is that young people were raised on social media, that they live their life on social media, and social media gives you this mentality. I don't like your speech, silence. Unfriend, blocked, the end. It's not like, oh, you have an opinion I don't agree with. Okay, well, and then we have to learn to live with one another, even though we don't agree or disagree. And I understand, though, on social media, sometimes it's not worth it. Sometimes you don't want to have to deal with all these people who want to argue and fight with you, so you just silence them and block them. I understand that, it's your social media. You're going to control it the way you want. But I think it begins to impact the way you think about freedom of speech at large. So I want to make sure I try to draw a fine line here. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be allowed to decide who or who you follow or not follow on social media. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, because that is such a dominant part of young people's life, that way of thinking creeps over to freedom of speech in other areas. Hey, you can't come to my college campus and say things I don't like. No, I don't want you here. Silence. No, go away. Ban you from this campus. No, I don't want. No, we'll protest. We'll do acts of violence to stop you because I shouldn't have to tolerate it. I don't have to tolerate it on social media. It creates a way of thinking that has real world consequences. Because let's think about it. Nobody gets on social media and you don't get a user manual going, frequent use of social media could change the way you think about this or what you do. You don't. You're on social media. It was a brave new world. And then you start engaging in something. And even today, they're still studying all of the impacts social media has on our brains, its addictive nature, all of the things about it. But we cannot deny its possible influence on the way people think in regards to free speech. And now we see young people. Young people are the ones who are like, no, they are basically opposed to free speech. They're basically against it in many different ways. And that's the future. Now, let me get very clear. If people begin to silence, stop, censor, and end free speech, you have to see how that will begin to absolutely impact the church and religious freedom. I mean that we're in trouble because again our message is so offensive to a world that's moving away from God. Heaven, hell, judgment, sin, repentance, morality that goes against the cultural norms of today. None of that is going to be tolerated. And if they want to silence any speech they find offensive, Christianity's message is offensive. People are going to be offended by the message of Jesus Christ. What is the church's plan for this going into 2021? What is it going to look like by the time we get to 2023 or 2024? Remember, the kids in college now who seem to be opposed to free speech are going to be the future leaders running this country. They're going to be the future congressmen, mayors, senators, presidents, Supreme Court justices, district court justices. We have to think about where this is going. And I don't have a clear, I don't know. Ultimately, this is what we know. Christianity has demonstrated in history that even when they say you cannot preach the name of Jesus and you can't preach that, we keep preaching and we accept the consequences that come with it. Remember the early church, it may be stoning, maybe fed to the lions, but you just keep preaching. You just keep teaching. Now remember, it doesn't mean they're attacking you because they don't allow you to use their platform. I want to make sure we got to make sure we use some common sense here. It's like, if a department store, doesn't say Merry Christmas, Christians feel like it's an attack upon us. They don't say Merry Christmas when I go to Target. I'm never going to go back. You will say Merry Christmas because it's Christmas. And if you don't say Christmas, you're attacking Jesus. And it's like, calm down. Okay, it's not It's not the department store's job to say Merry Christmas. I could care less if they say Merry Christmas. I could care less. It's not there. You're going there to purchase material things to give to people. I don't care. But so sometimes we overreact and like, it's a war on Christmas. It's a war on us. We're being attacked. And I think sometimes we're going to have to draw a distinction we're going to have to draw a distinction and acknowledge when it's actually an attack and when it's simply, hey, we don't like your message. We don't want you on our platform. And we have that right. Now, again, what rights do they have versus what rights? I have the freedom to speak. Doesn't guarantee me the freedom to pick any platform I want to speak those words. So Christianity is going to have to figure out what we do. And then this is what Christians will do. Christians will then everyone says, well, Christians need to create their own platform. But guess what will happen? Then you're going to have a Catholic platform, and Catholics don't want the Protestants on there. You're going to have a Protestant platform. They don't want the Catholics on there. And then you're going to have a Protestant platform, and they don't want the charismatics there. And then the charismatics don't want the non-charismatics there. And then you're going to have all these individual Christian platforms saying, hey, join our platform so that you can proclaim your message. However, we only want certain messages here. So then you're only reaching the people who already agree with your message. Okay. No, how do you work that? Again, you can go to, there's a number of Christian platforms that you go to, and there's things you have to agree to be on their platform. And if you disagree, you can't be on there. So I think what we're going to end up is all these individual bubbles of ideas and ideologies and perspectives. And we're going to live in our bubble, and we're going to disregard the other bubble. Well, the Christian idea is, no, I want to reach the people in the other bubble. I don't want to just reach Christians. I want to reach everyone, right? That's why I never know who's going to hear my podcast. I'm not just on sermon audio where, okay, the only people who are going to probably hear my podcast are people who profess to be Christians for the most part, right? Non-Christians are probably not hanging out on sermon audio, okay? That's typically not the case, right? So here now, my podcast or iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple. I mean, you name it. We're everywhere. In fact, the one place we can't get is on the Christian podcast app that has millions and millions of Christian podcasts. We can't get there, but we're everywhere else. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere. So that's good because I don't know who's going to hear. Now, now sometimes it's frustrating because you get people who utterly disagree with everything you say, but I still want that opportunity. So it's just. Those numbers were a little staggering, and that it seems to be younger people. And as he said, it doesn't bode well for the freedom of speech moving forward. And I don't know how the church is going to handle it. I don't know how the church is going to move forward. I think this is what we'll see. We'll see some churches, sadly, that will just compromise. And they won't compromise in an explicit way. It'll be very subtle. In other words, well, we just won't be so... We just won't preach that much on homosexuality. We just won't really say much about gender and the whole transgender idea. We just won't say much about that, and we're not going to say and just try to be very careful what we speak so that we can go along to get along. Well, there it just leads to compromise. I think many will compromise. But they will say that they're being loving. They will say they'll make all the spiritual excuses. Some will speak out and try. I think sometimes just try to be offensive just so that they can be in the middle of a controversy because that's lots of downloads, right? I mean it's true. If you can get banned, if you can get something removed from Facebook, YouTube, then guess what you do? The next time you post, it's about how you were banned and how you were silenced. And then you become the victim, you become the martyr, and then you build a following based off your martyrdom. Hey, I got silenced. They took down my video on YouTube. Everyone follow me. And please subscribe for $24.99 so that I can get some money. Okay, now it becomes almost a badge of honor. That's another approach. We need a biblical approach. We need a thoughtful approach. And just remember, though, I think this is key. We want to defend the rights of others, even though you disagree with them. I want others to have freedom because if I deny their freedom, I'm denying my freedom. All right. So there's one major issue that we need to think about as looking forward the freedom of speech. What is it going to look like in 2021? What is it going to look like? And I know you're like, you didn't give us any clear answers. I don't know if there's any clear answers. The one clear answer is no matter what happens, we keep trying to preach the word of God. We keep evangelizing, we keep baptizing and bringing them into the church, and we keep discipling. That's the Great Commission. That commission is to be carried out whether we have the freedom of speech or it's taken away. We keep preaching, all right? And we preach wherever we can, however we can. Right now, I still have the ability to turn on this microphone and go live whenever I want. So I need to keep doing that, and every church needs to keep doing that. We have to work while it's day because the night cometh when no man can work. We got to use the opportunity now. And we also have to realize, I'm not going to go back and repeat everything. Now I feel like I'm just repeating myself. So it's not that I'm trying to repeat myself. I'm just still processing, still trying to think this all through. But yeah, give me your thoughts. What you can give me your predictions. All right. I mean, it's perfectly fine to predict. Newsif@yahoo.com. 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 That's newsif@yahoo.com. Newsif@yahoo.com. All right. I'll stop right there. Thanks. I'll probably be back here shortly. God bless.